This is 3.1 part 3, and we're going to find the GCF of three numbers this time, 245, 280, and 385. So let's do our factor trees for each of those. 245, obviously 2 isn't going to work. I'm going to use 5, and it's going to be 5 times 49, and 49 is 7 times 7. And then 280, I'm going to use my 10 rule for this one. 280 is 10 times 28. 10 is 5 and 2. 28 is 2 and 14. And 14 is 2 and 7. And then 385. I'm going to use my 5 rule for this one. That's going to be 5, which is prime, times 77. 77 is 7 times 11. So let's find our prime factorizations. Our prime factorizations of 245 is 5 times 7 times 7. Our prime factorization for 280 is there's a 2 times a 2 times a 2 times a 5 times a 7. And our prime factorization for 385 is 5 times 7 times 11. So what do we have here? All three of them have a 5 in common. So my GCF is going to have a 5. All three of them have a 7 in common. And that's it. So in this question, my GCF is 35. The next little brief thing to talk about is what's called a multiple of a number. Given a number, the multiple of that number is a list, or short or long, of successive numbers that the given number will divide into. An easy way is to make a list of multiples is to simply multiply your given number by 2, and then 3, and then 4, etc. So the first four multiples of 3 are 3, and then times 2 is 6, and then times 3 is 9, and then times 4 is 12. So example number 5 is a very brief question that just says, find the first 6 multiples of 4. So 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 12, times 4 is 16, times 5 is 20, times 6 is 24. That's it. This next question talks about multiples, and it's called the least common multiple. And the least common multiple is, if you are given 2 or more numbers, the least common multiple, LCM for short, is the smallest number that all of the given numbers will evenly divide into. The LCM will always be bigger or the same size as your given numbers, never smaller. So oddly enough, even though it's called least common multiple, the number you're going to find is going to be no smaller than any of the numbers you see there that you're actually given. In this question here, the LCM of 8, 6, and 4 is 24 because it's the smallest number that all three will divide into. So 8 divides into 24, 6 divides into 24, and 4 divides into 24. As well, if you were just to think about this a different way, if you took 8 and wrote its multiples down, you would get 8, 16, 24. If you took 6 and wrote down its multiples, you would get 6, 12, 18, 24. And if you wrote down the multiples of 4, which we did already, you would get 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So one way, it isn't always the most efficient, but will work, to find the least common multiple is to take a look at our list, I'm going to add one more here, and find the first one that we hit that's in common. That's the smallest one that all of them will go into. So I have some steps of doing this a slightly different way using factor trees like we learned in this section. And you're asked to find the least common multiple between 12 and 15. So for this one here, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a factor tree and find the prime factorization for both the numbers you're given, which are 12 and 15. So 12 in this case is 2 times 6. 6 we're going to break into 2 and 3. 15 and 3, which right off the bat are prime numbers. So what's our prime factorization of 12? We get 2 times 2 times 3. What we're asked to do for this question, when you're asked to find the LCM, one additional step. You're actually going to take this 2 that you see twice, and you're going to write it using exponents. So 2 squared, or 2 times 2, pardon me, is 2 squared times 3. And the prime factorization of 15 is 3 times 5. To make up your LCM, you are going to take every number that you see either here or here. And if you happen to see that number in both of them, you're going to take the one that has the highest exponent. So let's take a look. We see a 2, only in this one, but that's fine. And the highest exponent of that 2 we see is a square. Do we see a 3? Yes, we do. And it's the same exponent in both, so it doesn't matter. Do we see a 4 in either of them? No. Do we see a 5? Yes. And so obviously we're done. Your next step to actually completing the answer is to multiply it through. 4 times 3 times 5, and in this question here, you are going to get 60. So the least common multiple of 12 and 15 is 60.